Welcome back to Revenue Rascals, the show for founders and sales leaders who don't just play the game, they change it. Today's guest, Aaron McReynolds, is the definition of a comeback story and a category creator. At 4 years old, Aaron was paralyzed, an infection caused by the common cold. He fought his way back one step at a time, and that resilience shaped everything that came next. From talking his way into Goldman Sachs with just an advertising degree to enterprise selling, Aaron's built a career out of defying odds and expectations. Now he's doing it again, this time as the co-founder of Alysio, a company that is revolutionizing revenue security. While everyone else is chasing pipelines and quotas, Alysio's team is building the system that protects the revenue you already earned. Think of it as cybersecurity for your bottom line, using AI to uncover hidden revenue, close the leaks, and keep every dollar you work for. It's smart, it's bold, and it is pure rascal energy. So hit play and get ready to learn how a guy who refused to follow the rules ended up rewriting them and creating an entirely new category along the way. Aaron, welcome to Revenue Rascals. I'm so excited to have you here today. And in true Revenue Rascals fashion, I'm just going to go straight for it. Something that really stood out in the form that you had submitted before the show so I could prepare. And that was that you were paralyzed at age 4, which I did not expect to read that. So I feel like that's how we should kick off this podcast. So tell me what happened, how you recovered, and just a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, obviously. So I was born in England, so we were living in Leicestershire at the time, and yeah, I got a normal cold as a 4-year-old does, and my mum was watching me, and I would be walking and just fall over, and then I would fall over and not put my hands down, and kept banging my chin, but she just kind of suspected normal 4-year-old behavior. The Revenue Rascals, rascal. That's what she thought I was being. So, kind of just went on as normal, and then started to get worse. And so she decided to take me to the hospital, and on the way to the hospital, I actually collapsed in the back of the car. So I was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, which, has all sorts of implications, usually found in older people, not really as much in kids. And we got really fortunate. The attending doctor there was actually writing a thesis on Guillain-Barré at the time, and just couldn't believe that a 4-year-old just walked in with it. And so, kind of 4 days fully paralyzed, and then came in on the 5th day, and something had happened in the night. I was sitting up, and they obviously stunned all the doctors, but it was a pretty quick recovery. I started doing all the physical therapy training, and a lot of that had to come back. But yeah, for 4 days, everything was paralyzed apart from my eyes and internal organs. So the only kind of memory I have of being there was a friend of ours came and thought it was hilarious that I couldn't feel anything, so he started drawing all over my feet and thought it was just so funny that I couldn't feel it. So I had a little Batman symbol on the bottom of my foot for a while, and then the physical therapy in the pool, trying to get the muscle memory back. The only thing I have is I got a little bed sore on my foot because my feet didn't move for 4 days, and like all the blood flow kind of rushed down there, and that's the only kind of implication that I have now. So yeah, kind of shapes your life journey a little bit, and kind of set just an appreciation, I think, my entire life of like, I shouldn't be playing sports. I shouldn't be able to do all these different things that I do. And so really kind of lent in on that experience. And yeah, it's never kind of front of mind, if that makes sense. But yeah, it comes up often, and kind of think through that little journey. Poor parents. I was 4, just had a little baby sister, and they were kind of looking down the barrel of wheelchair, and that kind of a life. So it would have changed a lot of things. But yeah, fortunate.
Oh, I can't even imagine how your parents are feeling. And fortunate is such like I guess that's the word I would use, but it's a miracle that you were at that attending a physician knew what to do. Because I would assume that if you didn't have that situation, the outcome may have been very, very different. So the cold caused this? Is that what they ended up deciding?
Yeah. So you get kind of regular cold and flu, your body starts to fight it, and then doesn't know to switch off and just starts attacking your blood cells. And then because of that, your body just shuts down to protect itself, essentially. Yeah, and it's an autoimmune disease, but I haven't had any kind of knock-on effects for the rest of my life from it. So, yeah, very, very claustrophobic because I just that fear of not being able to move again. But other than that,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, that actually that makes complete sense, not being able to move and the claustrophobia. But I do. The reason why I brought it up as sort of the kickoff to the show is that I really believe people who have not had significant challenges in their life, like they're usually not the ones who choose entrepreneurship because it's a special species, I would like to say, that decides like, let's leave corporate America and I'm going to risk it all and go from a 9 to 5 to working 24 hours a day to build a product.
yeah, yeah. It's funny, people always ask like, I think some people grow up wanting to be an entrepreneur and took entrepreneurship classes in college. I did one. I was fortunate enough. Ryan Smith was actually the guest speaker in my class. But I think it's funny. I've always tried to dissect it. Like, how did I end up here? I was having a great career in sales and thought, that's what I'm always going to do. I'm still selling, obviously. But yeah, I think, it's funny. I think about that moment being paralyzed at 4, and that kind of shaped my journey of playing collegiate sports, and I still play soccer, 3-4 times a week. And it's just like, I may never get to do this and I shouldn't have ever been able to do it. And kind of always had this fear of like, I could be paralyzed again. Like I do a lot of extreme sports and I've had some significant motorcycle accidents and things like that. And so I think it's just kind of shaped my life of like, don't take anything for granted, right? And just kind of go for it because you might not have been able to do it anyway. So I'd say that with a mix of growing up on Pink Floyd and punk music, kind of anti-establishment, rule breaker as a child, I think kind of fit into that as well.
Well, you really found the right podcast.
Yeah, we're in the right place.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. All right. So for our listeners that don't know what Alysio is, can you share a little bit about the product? And then I want to deep dive into some really great questions around how some sales teams can benefit from what you guys have created.
Yeah. So we created a category called revenue security. I actually come from, like I said, I've been selling for 10 years, worked at a cloud security company. We competed against Wiz and lost out in that challenge. Somehow we had $1.9 billion in funding and lost to this startup, which then went on to get acquired for $32 billion. But I sat there and kind of looked at all these elements of cloud security, which is at its core, how do we identify risks? How do we identify vulnerabilities, exposures, and threats within our cloud infrastructure, surface those, and then obviously go and patch those as quickly as possible? And, we started building the first product. It's what we raised money on. And that was all kind of more of like Strava for sales teams. How do we track top of funnel efforts, reward and recognize those? And then just kind of felt like, hey, this is great. It's a really good product, but how do we have a broader application across the entire revenue lifecycle? And so, yeah, wheels kind of started spinning on this concept. And I remember I was driving down I-15 in Utah, and I don't remember which billboard I was looking at, but this just kind of thought of like, you need to go.
There is so many billboards on the 15.
There's a lot. So I was probably distracted, and I called my co-founder. I was like, hey, it's revenue security. We need to go build this. It doesn't exist. But when you think about go to market, we know that, what is it, probably 30% of reps are hitting quota right now. So much of a focus on retention metrics and, these upsell opportunities that we have. And to me, every time a rep misses a quota, every time a forecast is wrong, every time a customer churns, it's because we didn't identify those risks and vulnerabilities early enough. And I know it's kind of a different lingo, but it's what I'm familiar with. And it just felt like it translated perfectly to revenue, but no one was kind of talking about it in this way. And so we built what we call, the revenue command layer. We sit on top of all of your go-to-market applications and just said, hey, let's connect all of these data points. And within that data, can we go surface 15 to 20% of unrecognized revenue that lives in the data that we're not monitoring, we're not looking at, we're not observing. And so that's where we come in.
Yeah, I'd like to expand a little bit on unrecognized revenue and missed opportunities, because I can't even tell you how many times I've gone into organizations for a project, reviewed pipeline, did my investigation and realized how much opportunity is just being lost because reps aren't paying attention to the right thing. And it's quite heartbreaking, but it's also really easy to do, even if you're great at sales. So expand a little bit about how Alysio helps to identify that and make it easy for the reps.
Yeah, and I think that's the important piece. I was a rep. I led teams, and I'm old now. But when I was selling, I hated
I
putting
think
data
we're
in.
at the same age, and I don't call myself old, so don't you dare.
We're getting there. We're getting there. But I was that typical rep. I hated putting my data into the CRM,
You were
and
that guy.
I was
So
that guy.
you were that
And
guy.
I remember my manager came in, and I was at Qualtrics, pretty hard place to hit quota, ton of reps, and I'd hit 7 out of 8 quarters in a row and going back to back presence clubs. And I remember my manager coming in and being like, "Hey, you're a phenomenal rep, but I cannot replicate you." He's like, "You don't put your data into the system. I don't know what's coming in. You just walk in and be like, 'Hey, I closed a 50K deal.'" And he's like, "I didn't even know about it as your manager." And I just feel like I'm not alone in that either, right? Like this is a big pain point for a lot of sellers, or we're always chasing the next new shiny opportunity that looks like it's going to close more. And so I just always remember I would put my opportunities on sticky notes on the bottom of my monitor at my desk. I was like, at least that way I can walk in, I can see everything and remember I have to send an email here, I have to do this, there. And I just realized that's how most reps operate. Like we don't want to go into the CRM, open up all 15 opportunities we're working on, try and remember what the next steps are. And so, we sit as that observability layer on top of all of the data and just surface it autonomously for you by combining the data from your call recordings and your calendar invites and your emails that have been sent. Because my belief is that usually the reps are doing a lot of the right things. We just hate having to do the manual upkeep to put it into a CRM so everyone else knows what we're doing. And so that's kind of where we come in. We just connect all that data, put it where it needs to go, and then surface it at the right time for you. So it's fully autonomous workflows within the platform. Everything is no code, just natural language prompting to then go create those workflows and just allow you to go and really just it's find and identify the opportunities and be aware of those risks before they happen. Like in go to market, everything is this post-mortem. Why did we miss? Why did that customer leave? Now let's go dig into the data. Let's go create a new dashboard. And it's like, it's broken. I fully believe that process is broken. So that's where we sit by having access to everything that you're doing when you do it in the right time, and knowing that there's gaps in the CRM, we can kind of patch those gaps and create this more holistic picture of what is actually going on.
So what I'm hearing right now is that the AI is enabling management, leadership, and reps to see where the missed opportunities are, and it's autonomous. So that means, to me as a leader, I don't have to go to that rep, have that question, show me your pipeline, what's going on? Where do we think the opportunities are? So I can, in my head, if I was just doing girl math that I like to say, so with my girl math here, I'm saving potentially, if I have, let's say I'm leading a boutique size sales team that's like 5 to 10, right? So in my head, that is like 10 to 20 hours of time back by having a layer on top where I can be ahead of the game, coaching on where the opportunities are versus asking my reps to be like, "Hey, what are you missing? Where did you drop the ball?" Because that's a really difficult, awkward conversation. And most of the time, like you said, they're not trying to drop the ball. It's just they're doing all the right things, but sometimes they just miss those opportunities. So I think for me, whenever I think about adding any tech stack or what I need, it's saving me time. It's not, adding another unnecessary layer. So have you seen that happening with your clients right now, the feedback that you're getting? Because I know this AI layer is something, recently that you guys put into the product. So I'm curious, what kind of feedback are you getting right now?
Yeah, I think, it's an interesting time in the AI landscape, because I think initially everything was about time savings and efficiency. And it's like, yes, of course we can do that, but that just becomes pretty hard to measure, right? And it's like, okay, if I can go give a seller 5 hours back in a week, they're probably going to go on TikTok, right? It's not going to make them go do other pieces of work by default. I believe that. And so, we don't want to just tie to these time saving efficiencies, but we actually want to just tie to revenue growth, right? Or revenue retention, where it's like we found that one deal that the rep forgot about or wasn't taking the action on, surface that they did the action or we did the action because we can do that. And we were able to go and save a deal that was going to be lost or a customer that was going to churn, we could retain them. And so that's really where I think the value of the platform starts to come in, is not just giving you time back to go do other things, but actually finding tangible evidence of revenue that lives within that data structure right now.
Yeah, Aaron, I love how you just articulated that. So I've been a user of the product, which is why I invited you on the show. But what we primarily used it for, because it was before you had the AI layer on top, was for the challenges and to keep team focused to produce. And I loved that feature. It made it so easy because the gamification, especially I've noticed with like more junior reps, at least the team that I was leading, they get really excited to compete with each other and to be focused on something super specific. So let's dig in a little bit around your challenges, your gamification, because I really enjoyed that as a sales leader, being able to use that.
Yeah, actually, so, the concept came from Qualtrics as well. We did it in a spreadsheet. So every day you would come in, you had to get the 10 points, couldn't leave until you got that, those 10 points. And I think what I've enjoyed about the evolution of that product and the use case is when I was using it 10 odd years ago, everything was around how many emails did you send, how many calls did you make, how many meetings did you book. And I sat down on a podcast with Scott Leese a couple of years ago and just said, what I love about the way the product works is you can track and monitor the other KPIs that don't exist in the CRM, right? And I think what's funny is when we had that conversation, it kind of felt soft. I don't know. It's like, oh, the intangibles, like how many events did you go to? How many baseball games did you take a customer to? And it was kind of in that middle of just everything being autonomous, these massive email blasts. I can do sequences and everything just takes care of itself. And now it just feels like the pendulum has just swung back so fast to almost getting back to the old way of selling, where it's like you have to be in person. You have to know and understand your customers. You have to know if their kids have a baseball game. Show up, be there, like understand them as a person. And this kind of relationship selling, I think, is just coming back in such a strong way. And to me, the best reps are not the ones that are making 100 cold calls a day. It's the ones that are out there taking the time to visit with a prospect, understand an org chart better than an employee at that company. All those kind of almost intangibles, because of the way the CRM is structured, can now be tracked, understood, and rewarded. And I just think, that's now the sales environment we live in. Like anyone can go send 10,000 emails, automatically, but that's not how people are winning deals at the moment. And so I think just by having the focus on what are you actually doing that is working, recognizing it, everyone wants to be appreciated for the work that they do. And going back to myself as a rep, I didn't care to get my wrist slapped for not putting my data in the CRM, but everyone loves to get praised when you hit quota. And so I think it's that same concept. Is like, you're doing all the right things, the outcomes are going where they need to go. Why don't we recognize all the pieces in the middle as well?
Yeah, it reminds me of when I first started in sales. Like we had no CRM. I had to wear nylons underneath my skirt because it was the dress code. I had to climb up a bunch of stairs with like sample books. Like it was so crazy. But you know what? Like I had the Post-its and it worked, right? But there is one thing that you said earlier was like when one of your managers said that, we can't duplicate you. I have been told that so many times in my career. And it's the nuances. It's the, before this podcast, I spent 45 minutes making sure I was up to speed on the product. I knew as much as I could about you that I didn't already know. I pre-writing questions, and I would equate that to the habits and the skills that I've learned through selling. Right? Because I would never show up to a big meeting without being prepared and being able to talk at the same level as the person that I'm speaking to. And I think along the same lines that you're speaking to right now, the baseball games, the kid schedules, all of this kind of stuff, I would go even another layer deeper and saying that your business acumen as a seller has never been so important. Like if you do not understand the way a CEO thinks, what a CFO cares about, what ops is going to do to give you the like, yeah, let's do it, right? Or the CTO who's like being asked to buy another tech product. Like, if you don't know how to play that game in that web, I would argue way below even enterprise selling, you're going to have a really, really hard time standing out in a crowded space of exactly what you said before. You can't just say, I save you time. I save you time. Because what I appreciated so much about what you said, and I'm probably going to make a short on it, is when they get those 5 hours back, they're back on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
That's like the funniest thing I've ever heard.
And I think, for me, it's, you kind of have this evolution, I think, when you go from being a commercial rep to an enterprise rep, where it's, I don't have, I think I had 2,000 accounts when I was a commercial rep, and then I had 25 accounts when I was an enterprise rep. And when you're an enterprise rep, you can know the business inside out, right? I had literally sticky notes on a wall in my office of the org chart, right? Because you had to know that. Now, there's not even an excuse for commercial reps. You might have 2,000 accounts, but you can go and do the research in 10 minutes before a call, and it can compile it all, give it to you. We didn't have that luxury, right? It took time to really understand. But I think more than that, it's the discovery questions have changed as well, because you're expected to just know, I've read the 10K. I know what you're struggling with. I know your team's revenue performance because I can find it online, all these different things. Now, the discovery questions have changed from trying to spend the first 30 minutes getting to know someone and their challenges and then flipping your product use case to the challenge. You have to walk in and be 80% of the way through a buying cycle, because they are as well. They're 80% of the way into the buying cycle of your product. You have to be 80% of the way into their business to know how it actually is going to fit. And so I think that's been a big transformation, probably in the last year or two, where it's like, all the data in the world is at the fingertips of every salesperson. Like, there's no excuses not to be prepared, not to understand the pains, and not to be able to just come in and be a consultant straight away. And I think that's where you're really going to see the difference is like, the AI, to me, yes, it makes you more efficient by doing those things, but it's going to make you a better seller in the end. And that, I think, is what is important.
And at the end of the day, that's the fun part about being a seller. Like, I'm so grateful all of that information is available now, and we can just skip the small talk and go right into like, if this is a good decision for you or not. For me, it's like, I think there's always there's a little bit of fear, I guess, around AI of, oh, it's going to take our jobs. It's going to do these things. And I was like, or it just allows humans to do what their big brains are supposed to do, right? Like, instead of doing all of this remedial work, administrative work, things that, we're not using our big brains for, it doesn't really even make any sense anymore. So now you get to like skip all of that and go into that strategic role, which I find so incredibly powerful and fun. And I've always said, and I think you probably agree on this one, is deals are won and lost in discovery, period. And discovery is changing. So you need to change, or you will continue to either win or lose deals in that discovery phase.
Yeah, I was on a podcast. Well, actually, it was like a summit presentation. So James Roth, CRO at ZoomInfo, and we are just talking about, I always go back and say sales is going to become like the NFL, right? And I've said this probably 3 different times, and it still rings true. Of when I was selling, everyone wanted to be in tech sales. Like, I left a job at Goldman Sachs to go and be a sales rep at a startup selling surveys, right? But it was like, you just wanted to be in tech sales as the place to be. The wallets were open. People were buying technology. It was easy. The inbounds were coming in. And then obviously we've had a shift, right? And everything is scrutinized and everything is harder. And I've seen so many people kind of weed out those sales because it's got more difficult. And so I just look at it like the NFL. It's like everyone wanted to come in and play football in high school and everyone could catch and run. And then you get to college and you just have to be a little bit better and a little bit better. And then by the NFL, it's like you're just left with the top 1% of all players that have ever played football. And it's like, they're the ones that have mastered the craft. And I just think that is the world we're going to live in. You say AI is not going to take jobs. I think it is, right? I think SDRs are getting replaced. I think lower level AEs are going to get replaced. And it's just like, no, I can empower my best sellers to do what 5 sellers used to do. So I'm going to give them a bigger book or more opportunities because I know they're going to go and execute on it and I trust them. And they're the ones that I think are using AI to make themselves better, to use the AI coaching to just go train themselves in their free time. Like, that is where you become a better seller. And I honestly think the best companies in the world are just going to get the pick of the litter on who the best sales reps are. And just, I think sales reps are going to get paid more money. It's going to be more prestigious because it's going to be a smaller pool of people that can actually do it in the age that we live in right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. AI will and is replacing jobs. However, I'm happy that I don't have to do the remedial work anymore. Like whenever I'm doing anything preparing, and I also love a good challenge and I'm very, very competitive. So that personality, I'm competitive with myself mostly, which I personally works great for me. But I agree with you. It's going to elevate, but I also think it's so fun to know that that elevation and that prestige is what's around the corner or what's happening right now. And I find that quite enjoyable. And like the last BDR team that I set up, instead of a standard like 6-team start, I only needed 3 because I had an AI rep named Sam, and Sam can 3x perform those most tasks and most meetings booked that those reps, I didn't need all those extra reps. And those 3 reps then did the harder work. So first of all, part of their job description turned into an AI manager, which that's fun for them. Now it's not just, your basic BDR or SDR work. And then on top of that, they got to handle more challenging appointment challenges, right? Like, okay, this one didn't convert. I'm going to figure out why, and now I'm going to win. So it allows like the humans to, once again, use their big brains. And like, I just find this to be a very exciting time. And I never worry about jobs being eliminated. I'm curious about what other jobs are being created. And that happens every single time that there is an advancement in technology or anything in the world. So for me, I think this is like a really, really exciting time. And so one thing I wanted my audience to understand is like, who is the best user for Alysio? Like, who should be on it? Like, how big can your team be? How small can it be? Who is it really built for?
Yeah. So we believe it's for the CRO down to the SDR. Like everyone within the go-to-market org can use the platform, be on the platform. We want to put the data in the fingertips of every person within the go-to-market org. And I think that's important because historically you needed a dashboard created. You were filing a ticket with RevOps. They were going to go out, they were going to crunch the data, put into a dashboard for you, and then you were still left to figure out the insights and the analysis of the data, and then what do I need to go and do with that data and take action. And so, that's what we've simplified is you don't just get data, you get insights and action in one query. And why shouldn't sellers have access to that data? It's their opportunities. We don't need this kind of drawn out process. And so, I think as far as sales team size goes, usually it's kind of 50 reps plus, where it's like, yes, we have multiple tools. The data is in silos. Our sales team's not talking to the CS team. The CS isn't talking to marketing, et cetera. And so kind of consolidating these fragmented data silos into one interface. So usually companies that have 5+ applications within the go-to-market team, which is now getting easier to get. It's usually like 15+. So yeah, usually around 50 reps, 2 to 3 in a RevOps org.
Okay, amazing. So one thing I want to talk about is the team size that you need to scale a company like your own. I think that there's lots of different opinions on how many people you need to scale, how big the sales team should be, product-led growth versus sales teams-led growth. Like, talk to us a little bit about what that looks like at Alysio.
Yeah. So we're only 10 people right now, full time. And, I think we kind of have this challenge of the revenue goals that we want to go and hit, the fundraising we need to go and do. We want to do that with the smallest team possible. And for better or for worse, our slogan is don't ask for more headcount, ask for more tokens. And so for us, that focuses on, if you can come to me, look me in the eyes and say, I can't do this with AI, I need a human, great. Then we'll go and have that conversation. But, I've challenged the team to have that as their mindset. And, I think about our head of product, he'd never written code, he was a great product manager. And we gave him that mentor. We're like, hey, I know you want someone else. Like, you go see if you can do it. And if you can't, come back and we can have that conversation. He went and got himself a license on Cursor, started figuring out how to prompt engineer. Obviously, the devs come in and analyze the code he writes, but he now has 3, features within the platform that he has built. And what I've seen is immense pride from him. Like he's just leveled up as a human. Like his resume has changed in a year of what he can do and what he can bring to the table. And that's something that historically by human default would be like, oh, this is not me. It's out of my scope. I need someone who can do it. Then you go and hire someone, and to see him just say, no, I'll figure it out. And everybody is doing that. And so I think, you talk about it will create jobs and opportunities. Yeah, we're already seeing it. Go to market engineers here, there, new kind of roles are being formed. And for me now, I'm seeing like these hybrid roles as well, where it's like you don't have to just go hire a specialist who can do that role. You can just hire the best person who's a go-getter, previous founder, whatever it may be, who will go and figure it out. And so that's where I get excited. Like I don't want to go bragging about having a 3,000 person company anymore. That to me, that's not the bragging rights. It's like, no, this is what we've achieved with this small of a head count, and that revenue per employee metric, I think, just becomes more and more important as we see the opportunities with AI right now. So we're keeping it lean.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. A few things that I love is one, clearly keeping your profits up by adding tech and not always a headcount, number one. But I think what I care about most about what you said is the evolution, like the development you can have as an employee or a team member at companies that give you the autonomy and the power to go source a tech solution that's maybe going to cost, 1/4 of what a human would. So that's great cost savings, but also what new skills did you just add? Like that keeps people what I would call sticky to a company. I think it's hard to retain the type of people that you're describing right now because everybody wants them. Because the go-getters, the ones who will figure it out, they always show up, they perform, they hit their numbers. I mean, they're getting headhunted, they're getting offers all of the time. But when you can offer them an environment that I believe is autonomy, recognition, and opportunity for growth, that's what keeps somebody super sticky. So I'm curious, how have you built this elite team of 10? Is it from your network? Did you do regular interviews? And if you did need to hire someone, what would you go do right now?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so the first hire was a recommendation from one of our VCs. The second was a friend of his. And then we actually went out and used a recruiter to go get a head of AI because it's hard to go get that talent right now. We were super fortunate. He was previously with ZoomInfo, obviously in the go-to-market space, was running an AI team there, brought him over, and then he brought another gentleman from ZoomInfo over. So kind of a mix and hybrid across the team of people within the network, which I think is really important. It was kind of a gamble using the recruiter the first time, but then it's had a domino effect, and he's about to now go hire another individual from his network. And so, I think those first few hires, we set a pretty high bar. And I think, we in every single interview, we had every person on our team interview Bryce before he came over. So every role, every responsibility, can we work with this person? Will we go out for a drink with them on a weekend? Like, I know Steve Jobs used to do that, right? He would do interviews at a bar and just be like, can I even have a drink with this person? Would I care to just sit down and be in the same room as them for an hour? Because it's going to be 70 hours a week that you're working with this person, and probably spending more time with them than you are at home with your family. And so I think that, do they fit into the culture? Do they have the right mindset? And then as well for us, it's how do you hire someone that doesn't look like you, doesn't have the same skill sets as you, doesn't have the same experience as you, went to a different school, lives in a different state, whatever it is, just to get kind of that breadth of, view on the world, the way things work. And I think, being in Utah, that's not always easy to do. And so we've gone out of this community to go find good hires and great talent. And, I think it's had such a positive impact where people are thinking differently and they've got these different experiences. And so we just feel like we've got this really great melting pot of not just personalities, right? I'm not a developer. I don't play video games. You can struggle to find things to connect with people on, but there's always something that ties you all together. And for us, it's that kind of vision and goal of where we're going, and that kind of go-getter mentality, that kind of pirate mentality is there with everyone that we hire, and that's not something we will miss on.
I love it. So I'm assuming that goes back to probably one of your core values. Do you want to share with the audience of maybe like one or two of your core values as a company and how that ties directly back to your hiring?
Our motto is empower the individual. And that came from the first product, and that aligns with the new product, and that aligns with our team. And so, for us, I think it's really important when you think about someone as an individual, as a sales rep. No two sales reps look the same. You and I probably sell completely differently, but we can both get the right outcome. The devs are completely different individuals to the sales team. Product is different. And so not only do we try and empower the individual with the product, but we try and do that within our own company as well. And so, that's kind of what we use as our tagline. And then on the back end, internally, we always talk about deliver and, deliver for yourself, deliver for the team, and deliver for your customers. And I think that's kind of been the mantra for us from day one. The empower the individual piece, I think, is something that just gets missed. And I get even more worried we're going to miss it more with AI, right? Where you're trying to train models on outcomes and things like that. And it's like, I think back to my manager, he's like, I can't replicate you. It's like, do you need to? Or can you just empower me to be me and let me go and work the way that I work? And you don't want to hire someone for them to come into your org and tell them how to operate. It's like, no, I hired you for your skill sets, for your individualism. Come in and tell us how we can be better, and kind of let them run that way. And so I think, not only just from a customer facing standpoint, but an internal standpoint as well, empower the individual is kind of what we live and die by.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I really respect about Alysio is I remember when I was renegotiating my contract or we were coming up for renewal, Ryan, the co-founder, literally just walks into Kiln to like renegotiate it with me. And I really respected that. I was like, I'm so happy that you think we're important enough that the co-founder comes to talk about this. I don't know if that is the regular thing, but I really appreciated that. And it was a really like positive experience for me. And I was really eager to make sure that we could keep using the product and that it could keep helping Kiln even after I was done with my project. So that takes a certain level of like grittiness and commitment. And I'm sure that your team sees that. It's like, oh, Ryan left to do sales. Like that sends a message, right? That sends a message to the whole team. So what's next? What's next for Alysio? What's on the plan?
Yeah, we're obviously heads down. Product just launched a few weeks ago. Unbelievable reception to the product. So right now it's just a focus on revenue. Obviously we're on the VC train, and so we got milestones we want to go and hit and continue to go down, the fundraising path. We feel like the opportunity is enormous, and we know we have to kind of do this game that we play in a venture-backed company. And so we'll continue to go down that road, hit the milestones. I think it's funny in the space we're in. Go to market is so saturated, right? You wake up, everyone looks the same, sounds the same. And I think, one of the important parts of what we're trying to build is going out on a limb and really feeling like we have a category that we can create. And that's great when it works, but it's really hard to do. And so, I think there's just this level of education within the market. No one's calling them risks and vulnerabilities, and no one's talking about observability in a product. And so it's like, hey, can we go and marry these kind of two worlds that have always been separate and bring that into kind of one same understanding and mental framework of how revenue should be run. And so, I think going out and educating the market, but, the vision that I have is the same way that when we were competing against Wiz, you couldn't go to a barbecue. Unfortunately for us as Lacework, but you can go to a barbecue and the CISOs weren't talking about Wiz, right? And it was like this whole new concept of how security should be run and this great new product that came out. And that's the vision that we have for the product. It's like we want every CRO talking about how do you not have a revenue security platform at your organization? It's like a flying blind. You just kind of throwing it to the wind. And so I think, wholeheartedly that as a category, this will become the default way of operating the revenue engine in the future. So big task, but yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah, I think I'm on 4 or 5 times I've been a fractional CRO at this point. And when you come in fractionally and you come in like based on a project, meaning like I'm going to finish it, I'm going to eventually leave, I try to catch myself up to speed as fast as I can. And that is so empowering. If I can walk in and have that data layer and see the information that I need, I mean, it helps me execute, implement, and get the momentum I need so much faster. And so I'm excited for my next project that has a team size that makes sense for Alysio, because you bet I'll bring it in, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, we take a lot from Wiz, incredible company. And I remember, they always used to beat us, one, on like their speed, right? They could just walk into an organization, they would run this audit, they would just go find the threats within 24 hours. And you sit there and you're like, well, I can't get rid of this product because who's going to do this if it's gone? And, that's essentially what we want to go and replicate. Is like, can we walk in, it's your first day on the job, can we go run a revenue audit for you, tell you all the blind spots, and then you just can't turn that off, right? It's like, no, how do I live without this? And I think there hasn't been a product that's kind of delivered that way for go-to-market in a long time, right? You saw the shift to CRM 29 years ago, and it's like, of course, now it makes sense when you look back and it makes sense. But, I don't think there's been kind of that paradigm shift in the go-to-market space for 30 years. And we really feel like AI has enabled this type of a product to come along. And again, we're founders, we're dreamers, we see the vision of a world that doesn't exist. And that's really what I see, is like every CRO needs to go run these audits. They need to know the gaps. What's the tenure for a CRO right now? 18 months?
Yes, 18 months for a reason. But maybe if we start using your product, it'll be more than 18 months.
And that's really what we see. So, when we were building the product, before we even wrote a line of code, we interviewed over 100 CROs at, high growth companies, and just sat down, and instead of trying to tell them what product we were building, we said, what are your biggest pains? What are you trying to solve for? What would a perfect product look like? And 25 of them became formal board advisors after that discovery session, where it's like, give us all the information. Yep, we digested it, came back and said, this is what we're building. Would you like to be a part of it? And like, it resonates because these are the actual pain problems that CROs face. And they know they have 18 months, right, to come in, make an impact, drive change. And so that concept of the undiscovered, unrecognized revenue, like that is their job. How many customers can you go and say that we're going to go and churn? How many new logos can you bring in? And I think it's just, it's an interesting time. I was at a conference, they were talking about how kind of across the board, 70% of revenue right now is coming from customer retention and uplifts. Yet we focus so much time and effort on new business. And so I think, they've always felt so separated. CS and sales just always felt like different worlds to me. And it's like, no, they should be so united. And I remember when I was a rep, they rolled out that CS's number was attached to the AE that they worked with on that account, and it's just such an easy transition to make, where it's like, no, the CS rep is accountable for that revenue, and they're going to get commission like the AEs, and the AEs are going to get dinged if they don't renew. And so it just felt like the org became so unified. And so that's what we're trying to achieve with the product, is like, stop having these silos. Everyone's trying to achieve the same goals. Why is that data living in 15 different applications across the tech stack? It's like, no, let's just go unify that together.
All right, Rascals, let me ask you this. How much money have you wasted replacing shoes, sneakers, or even bags that could have lasted way longer if only you'd been taken better care of them? I know for me, running from meetings to kids' activities, life gets messy fast. And that's why I always have Jason Mark Quick Wipes on hand. Jason Mark is trusted care to help you get the most out of what you wear. They're not just about cleaning. They're about protecting what you love while protecting the planet. Their wipes are now 100% plant-based and plastic-free, made from renewable lyocell fibers. They're individually wrapped so you can toss them in your bag, your car, or like me, your kids' backpacks. And it's not just convenience. Jason Mark is part of the worldwide B Corp movement, meeting the highest standards for social and environmental impact. They're EPA Safer Choice certified, so you know the formulas are safe for your family. And their products are USDA, bio-based, and certified biodegradable. That means no harmful junk like PFAS or VOCs. Just high-performance care that keeps your stuff looking fresh while doing right by the planet. Personally, as a busy mom and entrepreneur, Quick Wipes are my favorite. They've saved my sneakers from coffee spills, playground dust, you name it. One wipe, and I'm ready to walk into my next meeting looking sharp. So here's the deal. Go to jasonmark.com and use promo code Revenue Rascals at checkout for 25% off your order. One time per customer. Again, that's jasonmark.com, code Revenue Rascals. And remember, this podcast is free thanks to sponsors like Jason Mark. I'm ungating sales strategies people pay me six figures for. So go support them, grab your quick wipes or your favorite product, and keep your kicks looking fresh. Yeah, you're speaking my business love language right now, because when I was an individual contributor, I saw it. I was like, why is nothing connected in this company? Like, this does not make any sense. You're a Fortune 20 company and it's all silos. And I'm like, how did you even get here like this? And it really rocked me once I had enough tenure to understand what was happening. And it's part of my journey of why I'm so passionate about the CRO role, why I started this podcast, why I do it myself, because it doesn't need to be disconnected. And you also don't need to wait until you're a $100 million company to hire a CRO, which that's my sweet spot, is helping those companies that, aren't quite ready for full time, but they still need what a CRO can do. And that's the fractional play. And I was actually thinking about this when you were talking, because this is how my brain works. And I'm like, what would be so fun is if I just knocked on somebody's door one day and said, hey, can I do a revenue audit in 30 minutes for you and see what would happen? I bet I could, as a CRO, get a lot of clients that way.
Yeah, that's, you're stealing our secrets. But that's our outreach right now, is like, hey, we run this free audit. All we have to do is go find the equivalent in revenue of what the product costs, and it's a no-brainer. And I think, that's kind of just been this world we've been living in. You think about, again, we've both been sales reps. You close a deal, you do all this hard work, and then you hand it off to CS. You don't hear anything about the account unless there's an uplift opportunity or the renewal's coming up. And then you're like, wait, I could really invite the CRO of that company to an event, but I don't know what marketing's running and what's going on. And it really is a silo even within the go-to-market org, all these silos. And so I think, being able to put the data at the fingertips of the people who actually need it, which is the frontline sellers and the managers, hopefully will be driving some pretty meaningful impact.
Yeah, Aaron, I felt really proud before this episode, because I can usually run that diagnostic and find the missed opportunities. But I do it. It usually takes me about a month to run through the whole organization. And quite frankly, that's really fast. I would always pride myself on that. And then, the immediate changes happen within 45 days, next level 90, and then 6 months. And, so far, so good. People have liked that. They're like, wow, this is the fastest it's ever happened. But right now, my 30 days is not looking so good when you've got 30 minutes.
60 seconds. Yeah.
60 seconds. So I think I'm going to need to get plugged back in and see this update that you guys did, because I'm pretty excited about it. So maybe I'm selling myself back into the product as okay. Awesome. So we're coming up at the top of the hour here. And one of my favorite things to ask at the end is, what is the most rascal thing that you have ever done in business? And share that with our audience, because once again, we don't do things because you should. We do them because they work.
Yeah. Kind of the one that I gave you, it's not business related. I think it's more person related, and kind of tells you a lot about who I am as a person. And so, I go back to my college days. I remember, I was living in another country, family moved to the US. They applied me to university in America. I didn't want to come. I was never a big fan of school. Again, kind of would rather go skateboard than do my math homework. And so I came to university, all these kids in this university that everybody in the state wanted to attend, every international kid wants to go to. And I just didn't want to be in school. It wasn't my thing. I just wanted to go work. And I remember I had this one class, it was called Intro to College. And I still don't know who it was, but this guy came in and he always talked about go get B's and go get C's and throw parties and just network. And so I did that. I took it literally. My first semester, I was like, I just need to get through on B's and C's. And so I would take, I never took a semester off. I just back to back to back, wanted to get out as fast as I could, wanted to do the shortest major in school. That was econ, couldn't do math. So I did advertising. And I was always trying to find these efficient ways to get things done at the highest level I could. And so I took that really, really literally. And within that class, he also said, you can also take any class for 12 credits in college. So find what you're good at and just take that class over and over and over again. And so I did. I took intro to guitar 6 times. I took public speaking 3 times. I did sign language twice, right? And like, I felt like I was gaming the entire university concept, right? And then I come out, got a 3.3 GPA, and we had this trip to New York to go and visit the ad agencies in New York. Kind of did the Willy Wonka thing. I broke away from the group as we were touring an office and just walked up to someone's desk. I was like, hey, really rude, but how much you get paid, right? I just wanted to know. And it wasn't a very exciting number. And I literally came back, and it was my final semester. I was like, I'm not doing advertising. And so I did a Google search, highest paying jobs out of college. Goldman Sachs popped up. I'd never taken a finance class. I'd never taken a math class. I did stats instead of the math prerequisite. And I applied to this job at Goldman Sachs. Had no idea what it was, no idea how hard it was to get into. And I got this interview, and I had 6 interviews in 3 hours and got the job. And on the outside, once I started, I said, like, why did you hire me? She's like, in 27 years at Goldman, no one had ever applied with an advertising degree. And I think that just like, as far as being a rascal, right? Like, to me, that's how my life has always been. It's like, act like you've been in the end zone before, get where you need to go to. And more than anything, like, just break the rules. Like, who set the rules that you have to have a finance degree with a 4.0 to work at Goldman Sachs? Like, being unique is what set me apart. Doing the guitar classes meant I could get a good grade, right? Just kind of game the system to make it work for you. And I think I've always done that. Probably the biggest one in business was, signing up for a credit card because they did a ad spot in Times Square. And so we signed up for it, it was free advertising, and just kind of hacking your way through and finding, kind of shaping the universe to work to what you need it to work for. And I think that's been always the way that I've approached life. I just sit there and I say, who makes the rules, right? And there is no one's making the rules, so go break them. Just be you, because everyone else has kind of been done. So I don't know, it's not as business appropriate, but just life appropriate, I think.
Yes. How many rules can we break? Right. And it's true. It's like, as a female revenue leader, it's uncommon. There's some, and I'm not trying to say there's none, but it's a small percentage. Like, most of the times if I go to, conferences or events where there's other revenue leaders, CROs, it's like 10% of the room is women and 90% is men. And I remember when I was an individual contributor at a really big company, and I had come to them with some ideas. I wanted to get into management. Like, I always had like this leader heart. And, I was great at selling, but I always had a leader heart. So I wanted to create these things. I wanted to be in management. And I just saw how it was just like, nope, it's just like roadblock, roadblock, roadblock. And I thought to myself, well, why do I have to climb the corporate ladder? I'll just go create this destiny for myself. Nobody said you can't do that. So why wouldn't I just do that? And I remember the day I left corporate America to start my own company, and my husband's like, how are you going to get your first client? I was like, I'm going to leave my house and talk to people. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell them, this is what I'm great at. These are your problems. Let me try to fix it for you. And it was that simple. And, my business took off, my reputation took off. And I think, when we think about our network is our net worth, you also really have to care for that net worth in the ways that if you say you can do something, you better show up and do it. If you're going to solve a problem, you better solve the problem. Acting in integrity and really, really, truly taking care of your reputation. And I think that's actually going to become the differentiator moving forward of who gets hired for things and who doesn't, is who acts in integrity and does what they say. And I just think it's so incredibly mission critical. But I just want to go back to the point that you make your own rules, your own destiny. If you want to do something, go create the opportunity for yourself, because no one's just going to hand it to you. And so I absolutely love that story. And I love that you broke all the rules and you figured out how to game it. So
That's why I've spoken on university campuses 3 times. And every time I'll go into the class, I'll be like, if I gave someone $100,000 right now, who's dropping out? And like, I think I've had one person ever put their hand up. And I just sit there and I'm like, it's so disappointing, because we're so conditioned, right, to go through school, get the good grades, go get the job, climb the ladder. I'm like, no, that's how the system works. And that's great usually on the outset. But you look at the founders, they usually are pretty rebellious in nature. They kind of have broken through this system. And the other day, I made a $5,000 bet in San Francisco that my kids will not go to university, right? Not because I will tell them not to go, but by the time they are meant to go, I think everyone's going to figure it out that that's not the right way to do life. And like, I hope that they want to come out and start a company. My wife's entrepreneurial, my mother-in-law is entrepreneurial. And it's like, there is another way other than going and doing an accounting degree and working at the Big Four, right? Like, there is another way to do it. And the most successful, happiest people I know, I think, are the rule breakers and have kind of broken away from the status quo a little bit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. I think you're probably going to win that bet. Our family would probably make the same bet. So I loved college. I went to UC Santa Barbara. I honestly loved every single minute. It was amazing. However, it's just completely changed and the work environment has changed. And, I look at my son who's great with his hands and can build anything. I'm like, why would I have him go get a 4-year degree when he just wants to go work with his hands and probably I think he'd make him an incredible welder, for example. And that's a really high paying trade. So why wouldn't he just do 2 years of junior college or learn from me of how to build a business and then do welding and go be super successful without debt and start earning 6 figures at 19 or 20 instead of 30? Like that changes everything.
Yeah, I think back to, so I was in high school in England and my uncle was a car designer, worked for Bentley as head of interior design. And I remember he went to college to study art, as you do, and got this internship at Bentley, dream internship. And they're like, hey, will you quit school and just do this full time? He's like, yeah, of course. Like, I'm only going to school to get this job anyway. And, I think that was, again, you think about influences in your life. And I think that was always something that I admired and looked up to. So like, I thought I wanted to be a car designer. I took art classes. I was the only guy in my art class. I did design and technology. I did woodworking. And it's funny because you think about that and it's got nothing to do with being an entrepreneur, but now all we do all day is create products and they have to be beautiful and they have to work. And so you just see this kind of like how the evolution comes together. And it's like, yeah, if I'd have been taking math classes and doing bubble tests and not talking to anyone and not throwing the parties in college, like you wouldn't have the network. And the first job I got was through my network. And I don't know. Yeah, break the rules. That's the takeaway.
Yeah, I love it. Break the rules, break the rules. All right. And then you have generously given our listeners a discount if they decide to try out Alysio. So thank you for that 25% off. Friends, we'll put a link in the show notes of how you can book a call to see if it's a good fit for you. Would that be the right way to do it? Or do you want to send them directly to a different page? Just book a call. Does that work well?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Awesome. And then if you decide to move forward, 25% off, just mention the show. Aaron, anything else that I forgot to ask you that you want to close out with?
No, I don't think so. That was great. I really enjoyed it.
We covered it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And that's a wrap.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Revenue Rascals, where we turn bold ideas into predictable revenue and prove that breaking the rules can still build empires. If you love what you heard, do me a favor. Tap the links in the show notes to support our sponsors. They're the ones keeping this show free so I can keep ungating the 6-figure strategies that help you scale faster, lead smarter, and take more freedom home with you. And hey, if you think you'd make an incredible guest or know someone who's built something worth studying, email me at hello@michelleterpstra.com. And until next time, stay sharp, stay bold, and stay just a little bit rascal.